Ahead and all right, welcome everybody to the first Neighborhood Bird Project bird examination. We're going to do a test here. So please get out a paper and a pencil, and we're going to start right off with sharing my screen. So I hope you can all view this first bird, which is a little brown bird. Can you all see it? All right, so that's number one. Write down what you think it is. And we're going to move right along. Here is bird number two. And I should have mentioned at the beginning that this is a test of our last class, which was on sparrows and finches. This is bird number three. And someone needs to mute themselves, a heavy breather. And if you can say something else about the bird, like if you can tell its age or its gender um, or anything that's more specific, please go ahead. Here is bird number four. Here is bird number five. Here is bird number six. Here is bird number seven. Here is bird number eight. Here is bird number nine. Here is bird number 10. Here is bird number 11. Here is bird number 12. I think that's the last one. Yep. Okay, I'm going to go back to the beginning. Sorry if this makes you dizzy. All right, so let's look at this bird first, and someone maybe unmute and tell me what you think it is and why. Anyone?
Is it a pine siskin?
Why do you say that?
Because it has a very pointy bill.
Yes. Anything else strike you?
I see a little bit of yellow on the wing, so just
There
kind
you
of
go.
two
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So, mind you, we're in the world here of sparrows and finches, and so that already kind of gives you a hint that we've reduced the possibilities from 10,000 to, I don't know, maybe 20. In the field, you don't have that luxury. In the field, you're just looking at a bird. It could be anything almost. And so just kind of keep that in mind, and don't forget to kind of keep looking at especially in these photographs, as many field marks as you can. So yeah, we start with this bill, which is very characteristically, very needle pointy for a finch especially. And then the rest of this bird is pretty nondescript in terms of field marks. It's got a lot of streaks and so on all over the place, but then a lot of birds do. You notice here along the flanks, the streaks are pretty dark. And one might almost say kind of distinct. They really kind of stand out. Look at the contrast between the darkness of this stripe here and the real pale beige. Some might almost say white, but of course we know it's not white. Next to it, so that's going to tell you that if this is a finch at all, it's not going to be one of the schmudgier finches, like it's unlikely to be a house finch, for example. But then we keep going, having started at the bill, and we get to the wings here, and we see this little bit of yellow in the like it's like a rachis almost, although I don't believe that is the rachis. I think it's part of the feather bracts, and that is a diagnostic field mark. So as soon as you see something that's like browny like this and finchy, and then you see this yellow either in the wings or sometimes in the tail, it could be a lot, it could be a little. That's diagnostic for pine siskin. And in this particular case, it's very little. And then going down to the tail, it's also I didn't point this out when we had our class last week, but the tail is deeply forked. And that's just something to kind of make a note of. And the only reason I say this is because not all finches have a deeply forked tail like that. So that can give you a hint. It's not a diagnostic field mark by any means, however. All right, who wants to say what this bird is?
A golden crown kinglet,
Why do you say that?
um, because of the really pointy beak.
Yes, that's correct. So I wasn't really aware until I taught this class about a year or so ago that anyone could mistake a golden crown kinglet for a golden crown sparrow. But if you're a beginner, that's a fairly easy mistake to make because your eye is drawn to the crown, to the color, and here you have this golden crown surrounded by black, and that's the same as a golden crown sparrow. So I think especially for a beginning birder, that would be quite an easy mistake to make. But we're not going to make that mistake because we're teaching ourselves to always start with the bill. And this bill is this pointy little tweezer-like bill that would never be possessed by any kind of finch, not even a pine siskin. So you have to throw out the whole idea of sparrows and finches and think of something else. And not that many other birds have a golden crown surrounded by black like that. I'm trying to think if anybody that I know of does in Western Washington. Bill, do you know anyone who does that? I can think of one. Anyhow, golden crown kinglet is right. What about this one?
Female dark-eyed Junco organensis.
That's wonderful. Yes. Okay. So why do you say that?
Dark eye,
Yeah,
and it's a Junco. Um, the hood is not all black, which makes it female.
correct.
The white tail Richter sees is a definite telltale for Junco.
That's true.
And
And oftentimes we start with the bill and it's pink. So that's a good mark too. So yeah. This one has fairly pink sides. Would you confuse this with a pink-sided junco?
no, because I've never seen a pink-sided, so I wouldn't be prone to call that. So
Yeah. So there are sometimes when these birds show up very pink on the flanks on tweeters or one of these other hotline eBird or something like that. Sometimes people will think, oh, that's a pink-sided junco. Because it is so pink. Don't be deceived. This flank here color can be very pink sometimes in our dark-eyed Oregon style juncos. And as my husband frequently says, if you hear hoofbeats, think ponies, not zebras. So we're thinking about the common birds, not the rarities. And oftentimes for beginners, it's easy to think that you're seeing a rarity. Because what you're seeing doesn't exactly match what you think you should be seeing. So be a little bit careful of that with these birds. What about this one? Anyone?
Your favorite.
your favorite.
Yeah, that is my favorite. This is a Lincoln sparrow. A little bit hard to identify in a way because it's taking a bath, so its feathers are all kind of fluffed out and raggedy looking and so on. So it can be a little bit difficult sometimes to identify birds that are wet like this. But yeah, we start with this central crown stripe here. This is a sparrow bill surrounded by some chestnut flecked with black and so on. We keep on going and we notice this very broad gray supercilium that goes along to the nape. That's a diagnostic field mark for this sparrow, Lincoln sparrow. The face is kind of stripy and pretty with, a little dark chocolate here and beige here and so on. And then we have another diagnostic field mark, which is this beige wash across the chest. and fine streaks. So nobody else has that, and that makes this a Lincoln sparrow. What about this one? Anyone?
Could it be the fox sparrow?
That's a good guess, but no, it's not.
How about a female purple finch?
That's
what Anna
right.
said.
Why do
Good
you say
job,
that? Yeah, good job. Why do you say that? What are the field marks that you notice?
The white supercilium.
Yes. Okay. So we'll start with the bill and notice, why is this not a sparrow bill? And the reason is, do you see how curved the culmen is on the top here? And then how broad and deep the lower mandible is? That's a little bit more reminiscent of a finch as opposed to a sparrow. A sparrow's bill is a little bit more straight on the top and a little bit more evenly distributed in terms of width between the upper and lower mandibles. So you can't always go by that, but that's a pretty good way to distinguish a lot of finches, not all of them, from sparrows. But then we look at the field marks in the face and we see this white supercilium, which is kind of faint. As I've promised you many times, if you see this in the field, it's not as faint as it looks in this photograph. It really does stand out. It starts about halfway along the eye and then goes all the way back to the nape. And it's echoed by another stripe here that starts at the gape and goes down to the neck here. That is, for our Western Washington finches, that is diagnostic not just of a purple finch, but either a purple finch first-year male or possibly female. It's very difficult to tell those two apart. Now, if we were to get into things like rose-breasted grosbeak, which is an eastern bird but does show up in very teeny tiny numbers in Washington from time to time, we would get some complications here. So, but for our purposes, this is diagnostic. What about this one? This is a tough one, I think. Anyone?
I went with Savannah.
Savannah.
Yes, and why do you say that?
He doesn't have to me, that little chin stroke there, mustache, says Lincoln, but he doesn't have the brown breast
So true.
and a bit of a little stripe in the head, I suppose.
Yeah, the head, yeah, go on.
And the habitat's gonna tell it too. Obviously, this is a very grassy habitat here.
Well, the other thing to notice is in this bird here, here's this yellow lore. Okay, so one of the reasons why I'm showing you this picture is this is a fall picture of a Savannah sparrow, and I wanted to point out that with this is a diagnostic field mark, by the way. This yellow lore in a striped-breasted sparrow. So diagnostic. But these fall Savannah sparrows can oftentimes look reminiscent of Lincolns, just like you said, except they're not going to have that wash across the chest. But that would be an easy thing to overlook, I think, especially in certain kinds of shadow or something like that. So it can be hard to see, but yet you do have to look for it. Otherwise, it doesn't have that very broad gray supercilium here. There's no trace of that going around to the back of the head. And when you look very carefully here, you do see this little sort of very faint trace of yellow there. These fall Savannah sparrows can have almost none of the yellow showing, or if it's so pale, it can be kind of hard to see. But it is there if you look for it. The spring Savannah sparrows will have yellow lores that are much brighter, so they won't confuse you as much. Also, the other thing to notice about this particular bird that makes it hard is there's no breast spot. Which of course both Lincolns and Savannahs would have, so that's not going to help you to distinguish those two apart. But with a Savannah sparrow, you tend to expect to see a spot here, but not all the birds have it, just as this one does not. All right, what's this one?
The juvenile white-crowned sparrow,
Why do you say that?
because it's got the sparrow bill
Yeah.
and the orangey bill.
Yes?
It's got the chestnut stripes that are for the juvenile.
Yes? So it's got a pattern of white crowned coloration, but the stripes are not white and black. They're, this is streaky central stripe, and then this rich kind of chestnut stripe here. Oftentimes with these juveniles, this stripe will look like it swoops up, so it'll go straight like this and then kind of curl up in the back. But with other birds, it will be straighter as this one. And then there's this kind of matching eye line that does not go all the way through the eye, and it starts at the back of the eye here, so that's very reminiscent. And then with a lot of these birds, you can see there's just a trace of a little black mustache here, nothing much to write home about. Clear-breasted sparrow, that eliminates huge numbers of sparrows. A little bit of a white throat here, but not spanking white and not outlined in black, so we know we haven't got anything like a white-throated sparrow. Can you tell if this is a gambelli or a pugicensis? I know that's just way beyond us. I can't help myself anymore. And since I've learned how to do this, I always have to do it. This is a gambelli because the bill is orangey yellow. If it were a pugicensis, it would be more of a school bus yellow. What about this guy? Anyone?
A golden crown sparrow?
Yes. Why do you say that?
Well, obviously the golden crown, which is the thing, and it looks like a lot of the ones we have in our backyard.
Well, that's so true. So we start with the bill. It's a sparrow bill, and then you see there's a little bit of golden color here and also here, and the rest of the crown is streaked. The breast is a plain breast. So yeah, golden crown, and probably first-year bird, which is just beginning to turn itself into a more mature bird. So this is probably taken in maybe around January or so. But anyhow, with these immatures and birds out of breeding plumage, they can have a tremendous variety of amounts of gold in this area here, even down into this area here. So not all of them are going to look like this. Some of them will have just a trace of gold or yellow, like right here or maybe right here and no place else, and that can confuse you, but don't be confused. If you see that anywhere, that is diagnostic, and that's a golden crowned sparrow. What about this one? Anyone?
House.
A house sparrow and a female, right? Yes, very good. I find this to be an extremely difficult identification. If she's all by herself and there's no males. Males are easy, but these females alone can be really puzzling. So we start with a bill. It's a very heavy bill for a sparrow. This is not a New World sparrow. This is an Old World sparrow, an introduced species. But common in the Seattle area and in all urban and suburban areas, really. Not too many field marks to speak of, although there are some. I mean, it's a very plain face, except here's this very broad beige supercilium that starts by the eye and then just gets broader and broader as it goes to the back of the neck there. Otherwise, very plain, and then sparrowy on the back and so on. That's about it for the field marks. So if you see a bird like this with a very heavy bill, and the face is plain like this, it's a plain-breasted sparrow. Start looking in this area right here and start thinking about house sparrow. Otherwise, you're just going to be puzzled. It took me, I think I told you the story already, when I saw one of these in the Grand Canyon. It took me forever to realize what it was. I just didn't expect to see one there. What about this guy?
Song sparrow,
Why do you say that?
because he has a ton of streaky
Yes.
streakiness going on.
Right. So we start with the bill, and you see what I mean about how evenly divided the upper and lower mandibles are in terms of their depth. But yeah, we look at the streakiness. Here's a stripe here, a stripe here, a stripe here, stripes everywhere, stripes all down the sides here, a little bit of a breast spot. So this is one of the stripe-breasted sparrows. This brown color can vary considerably in our part of the world, from this sort of reddish brown that you see here to a very dark chocolate brown. Doesn't really matter. some of you might have been fooled by the fact that some of these stripes here are chevron-like. Look at this, upside down V's here, which is characteristic of fox sparrows, and might fool you. So if you were fooled by that, go back to the head here and recognize that with this amount of stripes on the head, that can only really be a song sparrow. Fox sparrow would be very plain in the face. What about this one? Anyone? Well, I'll tell you, it's
Is that crossbill?
a crossbill. It looks like one, doesn't it? It's like her bill is almost crossed, but no. And maybe I should have included crossbills in the finches. Now that I think of it, they're not that uncommon. No, this is a female house finch. So we recognize that she has a finch bill. Look at how curved the culmen is and how thick and broad the lower mandible is. And then we go to the rest of the field marks. Yes, her bill looks like it's a little crossed. That's kind of deceptive, isn't it? With some of these finches, they have a disease that makes their upper mandible grow longer than it should. Some actually grotesquely long. So that's don't let that fool you. But then we go back to the face here, and if you disregard the streakiness, it's a very plain face. And then we have these kind of schmudgy streaks on the breast, and all of those say house finch, female house finch. Okay, this is the last one, and who wants to jump in? It's kind of an odd.
Spotted towhee.
Yeah, it's a spotted towhee. It's a kind of an odd picture, isn't it? I think there's something goofus going on with the camera, but we start with the bill, which is, so this is our largest sparrow. It doesn't have what really looks like much of a sparrow bill. It looks a little bit more like a blackbird bill. But we note that, and then we go back to the head here, and we notice the red eye, which in some ages and genders can be sort of brownish, sometimes very red like this one. And then the hood is completely plain, all the way from where it joins the bill, clear back to the nape, and then all down the front here too. And then kind of this chestnutty brown along the flanks. And then here we get to, so this is all diagnostic here, especially the hood. But you get back to the tail here and you see these white tail spots down here. They're not really white outer tail feathers, although this guy looks like he's got some white there. So yeah, tough picture, huh? But this disproportionately long tail with the white tail spots is diagnostic. So that is our test, and I think we're going to stop recording now. So Sarah, did you stop recording?